Welcome back, or welcome for the first time. In this episode, I'll explain why being resilient is insufficient in 2026 and how you can become anti-fragile using two proven protocols. It was the 30th of June 2019 at 3 a.m. when we awoke to find our bedroom on fire. The fumes had knocked us out, and but for our dog barking non-stop, I wouldn't be here today doing this show. Barely a minute after escaping, the house exploded behind us as we ran into the street and watched our home go up in flames with all our possessions. We sustained chemical poisoning, smoke inhalation, PTSD, and I almost died in hospital 5 days later. I remember thinking to myself, time to be resilient again and need to bounce back. I repeatedly played Eye of the Tiger from Rocky III, which always changed my state. There are few better representations of resilience and bouncing back than Rocky, but this time something felt different. Our home and possessions had gone, and for a while it felt like our minds and body had gone. We were unable to work, and a few months later, while we were still ill and living in temporary accommodation, the pandemic hit and the world as we knew it ended. So what exactly was I bouncing back to? To be honest, at that point, I was tired of bouncing back and aiming to be resilient. I'd already bounced back from 2 life-threatening conditions and being told I had a month to live in 2005. There had to be a better way. Now, your organization may have run resilience training. There are resilience webinars, resilience workshops, resilience apps. Social media is full of posts about building resilience. And yet, here's the data. Burnout hit an all-time high in 2024. 82% of knowledge workers reported being burned out, not just tired. People are absorbing hit after hit, bouncing back, returning to baseline, getting on with it, and being crushed in that process. Because resilience, defined as the ability to return to your baseline after stress, assumes the hits will stop long enough for recovery. It assumes the baseline is where you need to be. Neither assumption holds true anymore. Now, I've always been an optimist, but it's clear that the volatility and turbulence that we're currently experiencing isn't a phase. It's not a bad quarter, it won't stabilize. AI disruption, economic uncertainty, political instability, information overload, always-on communication. All of the indicators from institutions ranging from the IMF to the WEF and beyond are that this is going to get worse. We need to recognize that this is the environment now. The storm is structural, not personal. Imagining otherwise, waiting for things to calm down so you can catch your breath won't work anymore. So if your strategy is to absorb the hits until the hits stop, you'll be pulverized. So the question that follows is, if resilience, in other words, bouncing back to baseline, isn't enough, what is? What would it mean to operate differently? To not just survive the knocks and curveballs, but to use them, to somehow benefit from them. Enter antifragility, a term coined by Nassim Taleb. Conceptually, there are 3 ways a system or a person can respond to stress, disorder, and volatility. Fragility, breaks under stress, think porcelain vase, one hit and done. Resilience, absorbs stress and returns to baseline. The rubber band, it stretches and snaps back, same shape, no change. And then thirdly, antifragility, gets stronger from stress. Think muscle tissue or the immune system. They need the hit. Without it, they atrophy. This isn't just theory. In 2024, researchers published the first validated scale for measuring antifragility at work. Peer-reviewed, replicated across multiple studies. And what they found is paradigm shifting. Antifragility, measured distinctly from resilience, correlates with thriving at work, learning, vitality, and willingness to take risks and entrepreneurship. And here's the critical finding. Antifragility correlates negatively with burnout. By contrast, resilience does not protect against burnout. You can bounce back 1,000 times and still burn out. Whereas antifragility, the capacity to grow from disorder, actually reduces burnout. Researchers identified 2 factors that make up antifragility. Firstly, optionality to gain. This refers to the ability to recognize and choose opportunities, not just to minimize losses, but to maximize gains from disorder. When things fall apart, the anti-fragile person sees options that others don't. Secondly, disorder embracement, a positive orientation towards uncertainty, variability, and chaos. Not tolerance, not acceptance, actual excitement about disorder as a source of growth. Think about that second one. Resilient people tolerate disorder. Antifragile people are energized by it. These traits are what I saw in elite special operators that I've met with, worked with, and interviewed on this show, including SEALs, SAS, and SBS operators. They didn't just survive selection. They got stronger from it. They didn't just recover from missions. They extracted lessons that made them more capable. The same patterns repeat across arenas. The context changes, courtroom, boardroom, battlefield, but the physiology and psychology don't. And crucially, what we know is that the anti-fragile response is trainable. So I'm going to give you two protocols today. They work at different timescales and contexts, but you'll need both. The first is for real-time state control, when your heart rate spikes and you need to bring yourself back online fast. That's the physiological sigh. The second is for converting setbacks into strength, the rebuild loop. That's strategic and it operates over days. So let's start with the physiological sigh and the problem that it solves. If your state collapses, your skills can't show up. You can have 20 years of expertise, but if your heart rate is 140 or above, then your prefrontal cortex is offline and you're operating on instinct, not intelligence. Most people try to think their way out of stress. They tell themselves to calm down. They use willpower. That doesn't work. You cannot outthink a physiological state. You have to shift it at the level it's operating, which is the nervous system. So let's turn to recent research. Stanford researchers published a study in 2023 testing different breathing techniques against each other and against mindfulness meditation. The physiological sigh outperformed everything else for reducing physiological arousal and improving mood, not by a small margin, but significantly. And it only takes about 30 seconds. So you can use this technique in any acute stress moment, before a difficult meeting, or when you feel activation rising, or to reset after a high pressure event. So here's the technique. It's simple. 2 inhales through the nose, then 1 long exhale through your mouth. Here's the precise sequence. First inhale, deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs at least more than halfway, followed by a second inhale. So here's the critical bit. Without exhaling that first inhale, take another short, sharp inhale through your nose to fully expand your lungs. Then follow this up with an extended exhale. Slowly exhale through your mouth until your lungs are empty. That's one cycle. The double inhale is what makes this work. It maximizes carbon dioxide offload on the exhale, and that's what triggers the parasympathetic response. The dose, 1 to 3 cycles, is usually enough for an acute state shift. For a deeper reset, do 5 minutes. You can't build antifragility from a collapsed state. You can't see the options when your nervous system is in threat mode. You can't extract the lessons when your prefrontal cortex is offline. State control isn't separate from antifragility, it's the foundation. Train your state like a weapon because it is one. The physiological sigh is your manual override. When the pressure hits, you have 30 seconds to shift the game, and that's how you achieve that. So let me give you the second protocol. This is for what happens after the hit lands. It's called the rebuild loop, and you can use this after any setback, disruption, or significant stressor. Step 1, decide. Within 24 hours, decide. What is the smallest possible action that you can take that moves you towards opportunity, not just away from pain? Don't wait, decide. Movement creates clarity. Stasis creates rumination. Step 2, drill. Within 48 hours, execute the decision. Then identify one skill the situation demands that needs developing and begin training it. This might be the gap in your skill set that the setback revealed. Step 3, debrief. Within 7 days, address these 3 questions. 1, what did this reveal about your system's vulnerabilities? 2, what capability emerged or was strengthened? And 3, what will you do differently when, not if, this type of hit comes again. So let me leave you with this. Resilience is the baseline, the ability to absorb a hit and to return to where you were. But where you were isn't good enough anymore. The environment has changed and the change is accelerating. The storm is structural. If you keep bouncing back to a baseline that's slowly eroding, you'll burn out. Not if, but when. Antifragility is the edge, the capacity to get stronger from hits, to use disorder as a training stimulus, to emerge from setbacks with capabilities you didn't have before, and it's trainable. Not a personality trait, not a gift, a skill you build through deliberate practice. So the next time something goes wrong, not a catastrophe, just a setback, run the rebuild loop. Decide within 24 hours, drill within 48, debrief within 7 days. Don't bounce back, build forward, and notice what happens. So what's coming next? From 2016 to 2019 on this show, I interviewed world-class performers, Navy SEALs, SAS and SBS operators, the editor of Harvard Business Review, elite coaches and world-class experts, all connected by one thread: how to outperform when the stakes are real. The events of 2019 to 2023 have resulted in a shift in direction. The Outperform show is now focused on how to perform and grow stronger under sustained pressure. Not occasional stress, not temporary crisis. Instead, the permanent conditions of operating in a volatile, uncertain, and rapidly changing world. This season on the Outperform show, we're going deep into this territory. Highlights include state control, how to regulate your nervous system when pressure hits, recovery as a strategy and why recovery and recharging are not retreat, and lessons from elite operators who built anti-fragility under real consequences. So please do subscribe whenever you listen and share it with somebody who needs to hear this. I'm Martin Sordew. This is the Outperform show, helping you outperform the storm.